My name is Todd Gibson. I'm currently assigned as the Chief of Police for the Moore Police Department. Today we're going to talk a little bit about my leadership journey, some of my leadership challenges, and what drives me each and every day as a person and as a leader.
Thank you for tuning into Defining Moments Podcast. This episode is brought to you by CMM Financial Services. At CMM, we know how hard it is to find someone who knows and cares enough to create the tax and wealth plan that you deserve. After walking alongside hundreds of clients for the past 20 years with accounting, bookkeeping, tax strategy, and financial planning, we have created a proven system to help you reach your financial goals. CMM has your complete financial team to reach your financial goals. Book a call at cmmfinancialservices.com.
Welcome back to the Undefeated Show, Defining Moments Podcast. We're located at RK1 Studio. I was going to say the house that Kyle Golding built, but who is this?
Randy Kemp.
Randy Kemp, the RK1 Studio. Today's very special guest is the Chief of Police in the beautiful city of Moore, Oklahoma, Cleveland County. Chief Gibson, welcome to the podcast, sir.
Thank you for having me out.
Absolutely. Before we start, here's our gift to you.
Oh, look at that.
Yes, sir.
I got a mug. I'll pull out my pocket. I brought a gift for you as well.
Oh,
so
man.
It's not quite as fancy, but it is one of our departmental challenge
this
points
is
for you,
beautiful.
so.
This is what it's about. I guess we can just go ahead and end the podcast. I got the gift.
There it is.
We're going
Yeah, I've
home.
got my mug and my gift, and so we're good.
This is great. This is really, really good. Thank you for taking the time to come onto our show. Let's start back in your early career because you've been in law enforcement for a very long time.
I'm on my 27th year.
Yeah. My wife and I are huge supporters of law enforcement. So are my parents. So thank you for your service to the community and our state.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
So let's take us back 27 years.
Well, to be honest with you, I sit here today in front of you really being very humbled because it is nothing what I intended to do, what I wanted to do as far as a leadership role. However, policing has been kind of a calling to me my entire life. My mom makes jokes about a second grade project that I did in second grade that she still has today, and she'll show you if you go over to the house. But where I had talked about wanting to be a police officer, and I know that through middle school, through high school, even my friends as we're getting out of high school knew that I wanted to be the cop. And so I don't know other than anything specific that drew me, other than I don't like bullies, and I don't like watching people in need. I'm a guy that wants I really have an innate desire to help other people, and I'm a little bit of an adrenaline junkie. So the job has a lot of things that really draw to me, but I've always wanted to be a police officer. Never wanted to do anything else. Police leadership, on the other hand, is something that I never really saw in my future. I can recall a time very vividly that I was what we call fendered up, where you sit side by side with another officer, and we were in a parking lot, 2 o'clock and 3 o'clock in the morning on night shift, and I remember saying, I never want to leave this shift. This is what I want to do the rest of my life. And of course, oftentimes God's got a different plan for you. So here I am today, working my way up through the ranks with a lot of different experiences.
Mm-hmm.
But from a law enforcement leadership standpoint, nothing I ever strived for. It's just something that happened.
Wow. You're talking about adrenaline junkie. Have you ever been on a foot chase? Because we want to hear about it.
Right. No. So as far as the policing stuff that you see and that we all turn on the TV to watch, I've pretty much done it all: car chases, foot chases, fights. Get a stigma for biting a naked guy one time. It's a whole story in of itself. But definitely had times in my career where I was completely in fear for my life. Had times in my career where I thought, okay, tonight I'm gonna die. And I think any cop that's done this job long enough has absolutely had those experiences. To be honest with you, as far as like foot chases, honestly, probably more than I can even remember.
Yeah.
Car chases, more than I can remember. But what happens after you've done it so much and so long, something will happen. You'll hear somebody talking. You'll hear a story. You'll see something. You'll be like, oh, yeah, I forgot all about that. Yeah, I remember chasing that guy, and somehow he got whipped around. He's driving in reverse. I'm driving towards him. He's got this big butcher knife on the steering wheel. And, yeah, I remember that. Just little things that recall that you hadn't thought about in forever, and that kind of get mired down with the rest of all the experiences of law enforcement. And don't get me wrong, it's not every day of chasing foot chases and car chases and fights like that. It's a lot of mundane things and paperwork things and processes. But yeah, I've if there's something in law enforcement to do, I've probably done it.
Yeah. I'm curious about biting a naked guy.
Are you?
Talk about that one.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it's a funny story now. But I'm actually a supervisor at Norman. I'm actually a captain, so I'm a command level person. I drive an unmarked car at this point, and I'm driving home actually at the end of a shift, and they put a call out across the radio of a naked person in the middle of the road, and it's kind of funny for most people when I say naked person. People kind of laugh, but when law enforcement hears naked person, they think, "Uh-oh, that's a problem."
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they think something is seriously wrong. For law enforcement to hear that, we immediately think that's a very violent situation, potentially. Something's wrong. So where most people give me the laugh and the naked person, ha, 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 you see all kinds of things, yeah. But any cop that hears that, they're like, oh, yeah, that's a problem. And so when they put the call out, it's one of those calls that you're like, I'm looking to my right, and I'm like, well, that's just like right there. I'm like, I'm here. So being the good, studious cop that I am, I'm thinking, well, I should probably do something about that. Even though at that time I'm a captain, I still think I should probably do something about that, right? That's my job, is to help things and answer calls. So I drive over there. And as I drive over there, they've updated the call that he's now gone into this body shop, this car repair shop, and is causing havoc inside the store. And I pull up to the car body shop, and it looks like the place is on fire. I mean, people are flooding out the front door. I mean, literally, you'd think the building's on fire the way people are running out the door. It's because this crazy naked guy has run into the building. And as I get out of my car, they're pointing, he's in there. So I walk in to the building, still by myself at this point, and they're still pointing towards the back of the business. They say he's in the body shop area. And I walk into the body shop area, and I see him naked as a jaybird, standing right there. He looks at me, I look at him, and I said, hey, come here. And as soon as I said that, he's running out the door. And so I'm running out the door after him. We run through the parking lot. He tries to jump into a car, and as he tries to jump into a car, I'm able to get my taser out, and I deploy the taser. It strikes him, but because of his condition, it has no effect. So we're in between two cars, so we're in this real confined, tight space. After the taser's deployed, he comes out after me, and we're in this fight, and he ultimately ends up grabbing my gun. He's got both hands on my gun. He's pulled my gun. He's defeated one of the safeties on the holster, and he's pulled it all the way to the front. My belt is just kind of twisted around my waist, and he's got both hands just pulling on my gun. And I've got one hand. At this point, I'm thinking, well, he's got a better grip on my gun than I can get. So my best option here is to keep the gun in the holster, right? Or he's going to potentially use it against me. So I've got one hand that I'm pushing down on my gun and on top of his hands, and trying to keep the gun in the holster as he continues to pull. And again, we're in between two cars, so we're bouncing back and forth over the cars. He's got some leverage on me, and at that point, his chest is kind of slammed into my face. And so the only thing I have right there is just, I reach up and I just grab a chunk of flesh with my mouth out of his chest and just bite him as hard as I can. After I bite him, he says, oh yeah, feels good, bite me again. And I thought, oh mercy. That's not what I wanted to hear, so your stomach just kind of drops even further than it already is, because you're in a bad spot, you're in trouble. But whenever he responds that way, it's not what you want. But it was able to give us a little bit of distance. I was able to get him up and over the back of this little like Ranger pickup, smaller pickup. And as I have him there, he's still got his hands on my gun, won't let go. I'm still trying to shove my gun down into the holster, and I have my radio in my hand, and I just start hitting him over the head with my radio. Each time I go on a downward strike, I can see this orange button. Well, these orange buttons on our radios are so that it's a distress button. So if we get into trouble, if we push that, it's going to let it, and we can't talk, but we can push the button. It's going to let everybody know that, hey, there's trouble. And so the cavalry can come, so to speak. And so on one of these downward strikes, I see that orange button. I think, I've never pushed that, but this seems like a very appropriate time to push that. And so I push my emergency alert button, and of course, when that happens, bells and whistles go off in every car, in the dispatch center. It's sending alerts out to every radio that is picking and receiving that transmission. So, of course, the cavalry's coming. And we continue in this struggle over my gun in between the cars for a little bit. And then finally, two muscled up guys from the body shop, I guess they got tired of looking at it, and they come running over there, and the three of us get him into handcuffs. And once we get him into handcuffs, then, of course, by that time, other officers are showing up and different things like that. And we get him in the back of a car. Scene's kind of secure, kind of slowing down. And so I open up the back of the car, and I'm like, hey, what is your problem, man? And back to his, oh, yeah, feels good, bite me again response after being bitten, he looks at me and says, marry me, marry me. Well, it turns out he's just, he's high on drugs. He's just whacked out of his mind on drugs, and that's why he's in the condition that he is. All that being, I say you get a stigma because, no one wants to let me forget that I bit a naked guy, right?
Yeah.
I still got a chipped tooth on the front here, just a little chip, still today from that encounter. But the funniest part about that is my wife is, we got together when I was 19, and so she's been along this police journey the whole time. And by that time, I'm 16, 17 years into this game, and she's a well-conditioned veteran police spouse. And so I call her, and I said, hey, I got some bumps and bruises. I bit a guy, and he tried to kill me. He tried to take my gun. So I got to go to the hospital. I got to do an exposure report. I got to get, there's all kinds of stuff you got to do. And her first words out of her mouth are, well, Kylie's got a reception at school tonight, so you need to hurry up and get home because we cannot be late. I told you her thing starts at 6, so you need to be home. And I was like, no, honey, I'm okay. I'm good. No, he just tried to kill me. She's like, well, I can tell that you're okay, so can you just hurry this up because I don't want to miss Kylie's thing. So going back to, we get this conditioning over time, and that conditioning spews out to the family as well. And I thought, okay, yeah, I've been a cop too long, but you've been a cop's wife way too long that you're having that kind of response. So that's the story of biting a naked guy.
Yeah. You're obviously a fit man,
right?
And I met quite a few of the more police officers at a coffee shop. They had asked a cop a question I didn't know was going on.
Coffee with a cop,
right? And they come walking in, and it was actually really interesting interaction with the patrons at the coffee shop. They felt normal. Everything felt safe. They were just talking to police officers, and the police officers were engaging the patrons and kids, and they were giving away bracelets.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so good job on that, making the community feel at peace.
Yeah, thank you. So when you look at what we do in our community engagement, so when I first started in the law enforcement, a police officer gets on the stand, and if a police officer said the car was blue, well, there was no question the car was blue because the police officer said so. But as we've evolved through Ferguson, through George Floyd, through all the different trials of society and trials of law enforcement, the different things that have occurred, it's not that way anymore. Mm-hmm. And so whereas used to you trusted police because they were the police, now we have to be intentional about going out and building those relationships. We have to be intentional about building that trust and legitimacy in our communities. And so Coffee with the Cop is just one of many things that we do as a police department where we talk about community outreach, community engagement. And some people say, well, that's a waste of taxpayers' dollars. That's a waste of time. I would say that they're absolutely and utterly wrong and have no concept of what it takes to be a successful police department. Mm-hmm. Because we can pay the best. We're one of the highest paid agencies in the state. We have some of the best equipment in the state of Oklahoma. We are on the cutting edge of technology. We have some of the coolest toys. We're well supported by our community. We're well supported by our city government. All that's great. And we can have a wonderful police department. But if we don't have the trust of our community, we will fail. We won't solve crimes. And so we have to, in 2023 and beyond, really, we have to be intentional about building those relationships. We have to be intentional about breaking down those barriers, because one thing I have learned is we can send people to a homicide school, and I've investigated robberies, kidnappings, homicides. I've investigated it all, and it's not because of anything that I did that caused me to solve those cases. It was because of relationships. It was because somebody trusted me enough to tell me some information that I needed to know.
Mm-hmm.
Communities solve crime problems. Police departments are a resource and an assistance to the community to solve those crimes. But if a community or a neighborhood is waiting on the police department to solve all their crime problems, it's never going to happen. Communities and neighborhoods have to take ownership and have to stand up and partner with the police department in their community to solve crime and neighborhood issues.
Yeah. You use two key words there is trust and ownership. And I feel like as modern day society, there's quite a few that lack ownership, and there's quite a few that don't trust well. What is, I guess, an important thing that you do to earn the trust of your community besides coffee with a cop and being seen in the community? What else?
Well, and that's interesting because in general, you hear people talk a lot about how either they don't like the police or they don't trust the police, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then you'll hear them qualify that with, well, I like my police officer, but I don't like the police. I trust my police officer, but I don't trust the police. And so it goes back to there's a societal thing that they don't trust the police, this entity of government, but everybody knows a police officer that they like or that they trust, and they never want to include their police officer. Well, their police officer is just a reflection of every other police officer in the community. And we have great men and women at the police department that really, in 2023, and this is what really, I brag on this every chance I can. When you see a young police officer today, you think about all that this career field's been through in the last 5 to 10 years. All that we've been through, and the rhetoric, sometimes lies that have been spread about this career field in the last 5 or 10 years. The discrediting of the career field and the villainizing of this career field. And you have 20-somethings still raising their hands. Those 20-somethings today, they're doing that because they truly have a heart of service.
Mm-hmm.
Never before in the history of law enforcement have we had more young men, young women that volunteer to put themselves in harm's way because of a true heart of service than we do today.
Wow.
And so I'm in honor and in awe of the young men and women that get into this career field today, because they're doing it knowing what we've been through and watching and growing up through it. And so when we talk about not only Coffee with a Cop, we do things like National Night Out. It's a big event in Moore. We do it at the Warren Movie Theater.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like a whole circus carnival environment, but it's sponsored by the police department and other stakeholders in the community, just so that we can have community engagement, community interaction, and that sense of community as a whole. But then we do Burgers and Badges. Burgers and Badges is a great event. We've often partnered with the Sharing Tree, which is a local nonprofit that works with the Women's Resource Center and works with those in a disadvantaged position to help them get up and on their feet and get the resources that they need. Does a lot of work with kids. But Burgers and Badges will set up in their parking lot. We try to pick an area that's a challenged area that we maybe have a lot of negative police interaction, i.e. a lot of crime in. So we'll go to one of our higher crime areas. We'll set up tents. We'll have some churches come in. The police department's there. Men of Moore come out. All kinds of sponsors come and help support us with this event. and we try to make it within walking distance of some of our more challenged areas. And what we do is we cook burgers and have a cookout with them and let them see our stuff and just interact with kids, interact with the parents of those kids, interact with some of the members of our community that maybe don't see us always in a positive light, or more importantly, interact with these kids that have a lot of life challenges that maybe didn't grow up with some of the privileges of my children.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe the last time they saw police officers when the police officer came and took the boyfriend to jail for beating their mom, or took their dad to jail for something, or took their brother to jail for something. And so maybe they might have a little bit of a trepidation, a fear, or distrust for police. And we go and we try to build those relationships and be very forward thinking in how we can reach out to those kids to build that relationship.
Yeah, that's awesome. You were the captain of the Norman Police Department,
Mm-hmm.
the sheriff of Cleveland County,
Yes.
and now you are the chief of the Moore Police Department. So you are the captain of Cleveland County. What are some of your defining moments in your life that have led you to where you are today?
So to me, there's been several what I would call leadership challenges that have kind of developed. And again, I never had a big, strong passion. Obviously, I had some desire because I put in for the positions, right? But it wasn't a driver in my life. What was a driver in my life was to lead people and to make an impact and change people's lives for the good. And I always saw that I can make organizations better. I can make people's lives better with the different status positions. So I could care less about the title, but what I enjoy about this position is the ability to make positive impacts. And in my ability, my span of influence, or my circle of influence, grows with each rank or each position that we have. For me, what we look at as defining moments, obviously some of those defining moments are experienced leadership failures and being working for bad leaders and saying, hey, I don't, this is not right. I don't want to do this. But for me, as a detective, as a young detective supervisor, seeing and we had a really controversial officer-involved shooting down in Norman. And it really split the department, and it kind of split the community somewhat, this officer-involved shooting did. And then right towards, in the midst of that, we have another officer-involved shooting of a subject that was armed with a knife, and when we located him, we did not find a knife on him after we shot. So again, another potentially controversial shooting. And I was a detective supervisor at that point in time, and I saw that as an opportunity to say, to invoke positive leadership. And so when you look at kind of my strategy of why have I seen success as a leader, why have I seen success in people wanting to follow me, it's because it's about being positive. It's providing hope. And that was kind of one of the first moments where I saw myself in a position as a leader to influence others to stay positive, to latch on to hope, to walk into a situation and provide that hope. And what that hope is that hope is we're going to be okay.
Yeah.
We're going to be okay. And, that moved on, and there's several incidents through my leadership career where I've seen the ability to walk in with a calming demeanor, a positive attitude, and a message of providing hope that everything's going to be okay and we'll get through this. Because even cops during some of those critical incidents and those difficult times need that. Had opportunity to go as a division commander to the Norman Police Department up into Moore on May 20th, 2013. Myself and my now deputy chief, Blake Green, responded up there as a command element of a Norman detachment up in Moore. And yet again, another opportunity of mass chaos, terrible destruction, loss of kids, really impactful for the community. But we were able to go up there and inject some positive leadership and hope to calm the situation down. And I can go on and on with different series like that. We had a deputy when I was the sheriff who committed suicide and had a lot of friends. It was very difficult for the organization. It was difficult for his friends. Leading through those adversities are times that I've had success most as a leader, where I felt like I had the most opportunity to make that positive impact. And it basically boils down to projecting calm and hope into a situation. Even a situation as recently as Friday night, we had an officer-involved shooting. 4 police officers involved in a incident where a gentleman lost his life after attacking one of our police officers with a knife. And at 2:30 in the morning on a Friday night, Saturday morning, I'm getting up and I'm going to put on a uniform and I'm going to show up. And my job is not to investigate this anymore. That's not my role in the police department. My role in the police department at this point is to show up and provide that hope that, hey, we're going to be fine. It's a bad situation. It's a chaotic situation. We're going to do our job, and we're going to focus on what we need to focus on, and we'll get through this, providing that hope. And then the secondary thing is, adrenaline is high. We want to make sure that officer-involved shooting is a very complex situation. We want to make sure that we're covering every angle that we can cover, that we're being as transparent as we can be, that we're being as thoughtful not only to the victim or to the suspect as we can be, but also being thoughtful towards the actions of these officers that had to do something that they didn't want to do. And sometimes that takes that calming leader to step in and say, you're professionals. You know what you need to do. Now let's go forward and do it. And that's where I have seen leading through different adversities. Those are some of those defining moments. I find that the critical incidents, the more intense the situation, is where I define myself as a leader. 85% of the time, leadership is very difficult because it's very mundane. It's very day-to-day. There's not a lot of things that I can do as chief other than the encouraging talks, the positive touches on staff, and making sure we have a good philosophy, a good direction to go as an organization. But in those times of crisis, that 15% of the time, that 20% of the time that there's a major crisis going on, I feel like that's where I've always been able to excel because of that positive, calming injection of hope into a situation.
Yeah. It's almost like you've got a solid, strong mindset through all the experiences you've witnessed to kind of help you mold to where you are.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Has there been a point in your career that you wanted to just quit, say, I'm not going to be a police officer anymore?
100%.
Yeah?
Yeah, 100%. So the job is, it'll take its toll on you. It'll take its toll on your family. Every police officer who's done this job for any significant amount of time has psychological scars. And those scars sometimes get scraped off or ripped off, and it's terrible when they do. Sometimes those scars get so deep that they become invasive, and they affect your sleep, they affect your psyche, they affect your day-to-day life, and we have a lot of resources for that today that we didn't have 20 years ago, 25 years ago. But for me, I can specifically recall at about the 7-8 year mark, I'd been on night shift. I'd been through some critical incidents. I've got young children. I've got a young family, and I just had gotten to the point that I was tired of people. I had kind of lost faith in humanity, faith in mankind to do the right thing or to be positive. My wife, she is much smarter than me and much better than I am. And she would always tell me, hey, you know that like 95% of the people in the world are good. It's just you're constantly surrounded by the bad ones. And I had that flipped in my head. I would have told you that 90 to 95% of the people in the world are bad, and there's only a few that are good. But she always would drive that home, and she was always good about challenging my negative perspective with a more positive perspective and keeping me dialed in. But there was absolutely a time that I was applying for other jobs outside of law enforcement. And for whatever reason, God's got a plan, and it didn't work out that way. I didn't get any of those jobs, and looking back on it, it's because I know that God had a plan for me, and that wasn't part of his plan. Sometimes what I've learned in my life is that for me, I'm a very spiritual person. So when I have troubles, or I have things going on in my life that I need to address, I do that not only with the counsel of my wife, but with the counsel of my God and my relationship with Jesus Christ. And so that my faith plays a strong role in my decision making, plays a strong role in who I am. And in times in my position, people might want me to shy away from that. People might want me to not be as vocal about that. But I figure, hey, I'm on a podcast. You're asking what drives me, and that's what drives me. And so going back to, yes, there's absolutely a time that I had lost that faith in humanity. And that losing that faith in humanity actually was hurting not only my relationships with family, but it was hurting my relationships with Christ. And but those opportunities didn't work out. And obviously God had a different plan. And then fast forward to hitting year 20, year 21, I'm at Norman Police Department. And so that's really not that long ago, 2016, 2017, 2016, May or April of 2016. I was under some toxic leadership at Norman. Norman is a challenging community to be a police officer in, and a challenging community to be a police leader in. I'll leave it at that. But I was working for some toxic leadership, and it was miserable. And my wife, she recognized, hey, it's miserable. You can draw your pension, you can retire. You can't do this another 5 years. And she said, life is too short. She referenced the Bible. Life is a vapor. It's here for a moment and then it's gone. And life is too short to live miserably, or to be driven by some pennies on a pension check that you might get one day. Because I said, well, if I pull now, I'm potentially leaving some money on the table with my retirement. And she says, well, will you be around next year to spend your retirement? I said, well, I hope I am. She goes, can you guarantee that you will be alive this time next year to spend your pension? I said, no, I can't guarantee that. You know that. She goes, well, then don't make your decision based off money. Make your decision based off life satisfaction and your family, because the money will take care of itself. And so I actually retired from Norman Police Department, thinking that was the end of my law enforcement career, funny as it may be. And I went to work for Cleveland County. At the police department, I had opportunities to lead several projects. One of those projects being the redoing of the Norman Investigation Center. It was a pretty large construction project. And one thing City of Norman is good at is preparing you for success. And so I was able to become a certified project manager during that time. And I took a job at Clayton County being a project manager for some of their CDBG grants and some other things that they had working that I had experience with from working at the police department. And that is when the sheriff previous to me started getting this big controversy, ends up leaving. And I said, again, another God thing. God had a plan that he saw a need before I even knew it was there. And I'm tailor-made to fix these problems at Cleveland County Sheriff's Office. My whole career, I transferred from division to division because there was a problem. I can tell you story after story about where detective division had a problem, so they send me over there inject me into some leadership role over there to fix the problem, or I go to this division to fix this division's problems. I've always fixed problems as a leader. And so when I saw this position, the interim sheriff position open up, I told them, I said, hey, I want to put in for this. And two of the county commissioners at the time said, hey, well, we don't want you to put in for that because we need you doing the job you're doing. And I basically struck a deal with them that says, hey, let me put in. If I'm not the most qualified applicant, if I don't have the best resume, the best pedigree to fix your problem, then choose somebody else. You won't hurt my feelings. I'll be happy doing this. But then I saw the list of names that put in for the interim sheriff position. I was like, I got this one because, like, I've got this one. I've got a Norman was good about developing leaders. They were good about developing you as in your leadership role. And so my resume, I would put it against anybody. And that's not a brag. It's just because I was afforded opportunities to go to different educational things throughout my career that looked good on a piece of paper for that job. So I get the interim sheriff position and ended up running for sheriff and become the duly elected sheriff of Cleveland County. For me, one of the most satisfying parts of that was the jail. And the jail is something no one likes to talk about. You know, you look up here at Oklahoma County Jail, you look at even Cleveland County Jail as of late, it comes with a lot of headaches. But going back to my drive to impact people, right? I felt like that was just such a ground of opportunity to really touch people that needed to be touched. I enjoyed what we did when I was a sheriff, mostly at the jail, because I really feel like that we were touching individuals' lives that were changing generations of families because of the positive things we were doing and bringing into the jail at the time. But then opportunity arises. My wife graduated Moore High School. We have lived in Moore, unlike you. We've lived in Moore since 2006. So even when I was at the Norman Police Department, I still lived in Moore. Again, going back to a God thing, right? Because I didn't want to move to Moore, but that was where we found the best deal on the lot, best deal on the house. And so we ended up moving to Moore in 2006. And I'd always said the only place I would ever leave the sheriff's office for is for the chief job at Moore. There's 2 chief jobs in the state of Oklahoma that I kind of proudly say, and with a relative bit of confidence, say that are the most coveted chief jobs in the state. And that would be Edmond and Moore. It's not Oklahoma City and Tulsa. Those guys, Chief Gorley, Chief Franklin, they have a huge headache. I mean, they're dealing with enormous headaches, just not only politically, but socially and criminally and other things. Moore has strong support, strong community leadership, and great group of police officers. And so I always said if that opportunity arose, I would go for that job. And it did, surprisingly enough, unexpectedly, actually, very unexpectedly, opened up. And I figured that Moore usually keeps a chief 12 to 15 years. And so I knew that whoever got this next chief job, they weren't, my opportunity to do that job would be forever gone. And so I put in for it, and here I am.
So my parents still live in Moore.
Oh, bless their heart.
Yes, they live in the. I'm a fan of Moore. Lived in there for.
I know. I just like giving you a hard time.
I know. I love it. And I'll be honest. When my wife and I were thinking about moving to Norman, we saw what I believe a fracture in leadership. And what I mean by that is the way I look at leadership is you've got your mayor, you got your city council, you got your emergency services, and I feel like they all need to be in tandem on the same page with support so they can function as a whole, because your community depends on that. And at that time, there was I'll be honest, I saw fraction from the mayor to the city council, which was super divided, to the community, which was super divided because of that leadership. So thank you for coming to Moore, Oklahoma, and being the chief.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
How do you deal with negativity personally?
Like personally against me.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody has an ego, and you hear people say, well, I don't care what they think about me. I don't care. You say what you want. I don't care what you think about me. But you know that's a lie.
Mm-hmm.
If you're a human, if you are breathing, at some level, you care what people think about you. And I have learned that people that say, I don't care what people think about me, I think you're lying. Because deep down, everyone cares. And so negativity is tough. And leadership is a roller coaster of highs and lows. You make one decision and you're getting the negativity. And you make another decision and everybody loves you. You're on top of the world, right? Oh, it's the best leader. Love working for that guy. Next day, he's an idiot. Can you believe he made that decision? I can't stand him. He's going to ruin this whole police department, you know? But what I have come to know is that anytime you're in a leadership position, it's difficult. And anytime you're in a leadership position, you are going to have to make tough decisions that some people don't like. And as long as your integrity is intact, as long as your heart is pure in your decision, and when I say your heart is pure in your decision, in your heart of hearts, you really believe that the decision you're making is in the best interest of people and of the people that it affects, then you can take that negativity and just work through it and ride through it. I relate my leadership. I also relate a lot to my kids, right? My kids, I got 4 kids. There are times that they have not liked Dad's decision, right? But in my heart of hearts, I have never, ever made a decision about my children that I thought would hurt them. Any decision I made is because I loved them and I wanted good for them. And I try to take that same approach with people that I work with, that people that I have charge over. That is what is in your best interest. How do I show love to you, and how do I fight for your highest good?
Yeah.
And the decision I'm going to make, whether you feel it now or not, is a decision that in my heart of hearts, I think is in your highest good. And sometimes that's contrary to what you want in the moment.
Yeah.
But understanding that where my heart is in making those tough decisions helps me deflect the negativity. There's also an Abraham Lincoln quote that I carry with me. I could get it out and read it to you if you wanted me to, but it actually helps me, because I think that leadership from as long as you can remember has dealt with criticism, has dealt with these challenges where maybe people don't understand or people don't like what they have to say. But leadership, including people like George Washington, like Abraham Lincoln, have come to say, hey, if you're going to be a leader and you're going to do things and make changes in life, then it's not going to be easy all the time. And you're going to make decisions and do things that are going to make people upset and going to make people upset with you. And sometimes that's the burden and the challenge of leadership. And so Abraham Lincoln writes in this segment that I have that I often refer back to. It says, "The man who is anybody and who does anything is certainly going to be criticized, villainized, and misunderstood. This is a part of the penalty for greatness. And every great man understands it. And understands, too, that it is not proof of greatness. The final proof of greatness lies in being able to endure insult without resentment." So to do anything, you're going to get criticized.
Yeah.
And the true challenge of greatness is not doing things. The true challenge of greatness is being villainized and criticized and endure that ridicule without becoming resentful.
What pretty deep. That's really good.
It's a deep world. Leadership.
That's true. Speaking of leadership, what kind of advice would you give your 18-year-old self?
My 18-year-old self would be, quit caring so much what people think about you and do the right thing. The world is full of people that want to be led. They want direction. Even people that say they don't like the rules, they don't like these leaders telling them what to do. What I have found is society needs strong leaders, and to step out, take a chance, and when you see and know the right thing to do, do it.
Love it. Love it. What are a couple questions you wish people would ask you, but no one ever asked?
Oh, that's a challenging one. A couple of questions I wish people would ask me. that no one ever asks. Really can't think of any off the top of my head, to be honest with you. Let me think. I don't know. Maybe if I was wanting to be educational, I would say, ask me, what is the key to life?
What is the key to life?
Get outside yourself and help other people.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's really good.
Yeah. So I go back to Viktor Frankl, right? And Viktor Frankl, who survived concentration camps, who survived all kinds of atrocities, lost his whole family, lost his wife, still chose his own attitude, right? Still could be positive. And he reflects in his book, Man's Search for Meaning, that those that were the most successful in the concentration camps were not focused on themselves, but focused on others around them. And I don't know about you, but I've had some challenges in my life, but nothing like living through a concentration camp, nothing like losing my whole family. And if he can make a choice to choose an attitude to be positive, an attitude of gratitude, then so can I.
Love it.
And so part of that goes back to whether we're talking about my spiritual walk with Christ and what does my God tell me I need to be doing through the Bible, but also just human experiences of like Viktor Frankl. Everything points to get outside yourself, help other people. And when you help other people, in whatever form or fashion, there is not only a psychological, but an actual physiological reaction that occurs in you, and you're a healthier person, you're a happier person.
Yeah. What are you most proud of?
I'm most proud of my family. Yeah. Just like anyone else. Material things don't mean much to me, but my wife is my rock. She's a brilliant person, and I'm so lucky to have her. I have 4 kids that are amazing. And even though my oldest is married to a fireman, he's a good guy too. That's kind of a sick joke, but God likes to play tricks on me too. He had my daughter marry a fireman. But my kids, they're entering their young adult years. I have one that's in medical school, one that's in the Air Force, and then I have one that's a senior in high school and then a sophomore in high school as well. But I can see in this experiment of parenting, I think they're going to be okay. I think they're going to help other people. And I think they're going to make a positive impact on society, in which if I can do anything, if you can do anything, if people want to change the world, they can start by changing themselves, and then they can. And one of the most important things I can do is raise good, productive people.
Love it. You and your wife are great leaders.
Oh,
well done.
Thank you.
Last question.
All right.
How do you want to be remembered?
As a strong Christian man that helped other people.
That's good. That's good. I'm extremely honored and proud of what you do for all of Cleveland County, Moore Police Department in the community, and I feel like the Norman Police Department is awesome as well. And so thank you so much for your time.
Yeah.
And just, I'm grateful for you.
Well, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
All right.
For more Defining Moments podcast content, visit our webpage, www.undefeated.show. Follow us at Def Moments Pod on Twitter and at Defining Moments Podcast on Instagram.